Well, hello and welcome to another edition of Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham, where Team Needham discusses everything healthcare. I'm your host, Shawn Needham, along with my wonderful wife, Janet, and we are streaming live from the Moses Lake Professional Pharmacy podcast studio. And we are super excited to have Eliana Sheriff back on our show today. I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas. And Ellie, welcome to our show.
Hey, thanks for having me back. I'm excited to talk about this because boy, do I have a lot to say.
Yeah. And, I remember last time after the show, we got into a discussion about this. And I'm so glad that you decided to come back on and share your story because there's a lot going on in the gym culture and, what we're supposed to look like. And these fitness influencers that, whether they're men or whether they're women, that are in the bodybuilding space. And a lot of young kids are influenced by it. And so I'm glad you're going to talk about it. So in 2021, you did the Emerald Cup, right?
That's right. And that was actually not my first show. So my first show was in 2019 in Spokane. Forgot the exact name of it. Second show, I prepped for 12 weeks only to have COVID cancel it. You can imagine how devastating that was. And then my third show was the Emerald Cup, which, these were some seriously professional competitors, and third and final show, and we'll get into why that is. But yeah, so technically I did 3 preps, 2 shows.
So Zoe, go ahead and stream those pictures that we have that Ellie sent us. So here's you, and tell us when this was. Was this right before the Emerald Cup?
Well, clearly you see a mask on my face. So this is during the COVID days when you had to wear a mask at the gym. But yes, this was right before the Emerald Cup, when, you're body checking 24/7. Am I skinnier? Do I look good enough? Am I lean enough? It's a constant obsession when you're in the throes of bodybuilding and in your prep. And so this was probably 2 weeks before I actually stepped on stage. And as you can see, I was pretty lean.
Yeah. And you're telling me, go ahead and go to the next picture on the Emerald Cup, Zoe. So this is you at the Emerald Cup.
Correct.
And you're telling me that you were not healthy at this stage.
No, not only was I super weak, because I had been lifting at this point for a couple years, like with a coach, with a program. It wasn't, I had been in the gym on and off for a couple of years before that. But when you're really doing structured lifting, that's when you're going to start to see some results. And so at that point, when I went through my prep, all of my lifts went down significantly, which is to be expected. I mean, you're not eating, you're in a caloric deficit, you're under eating, you're overtraining. And that's kind of the point of it, right? It's so yeah, I maybe looked good, and some people would say that actually doesn't look good. It depends on what your preference is of aesthetic, but I felt pretty horrible. I mean, I'm actually surprised I was able to function at my job on top of the load of the full-time job that is bodybuilding when you're in a prep.
And tell us about, do you think that figure is sustainable?
No way. 100% no. And I think that that's some of the danger is like, bodybuilding or working on your body or lifting, wanting to change your body composition is wonderful. But when you get into the competitive side of it and having to do these really arduous preps where you really are starving yourself. And if you've been through prep, I'm not exaggerating here. This is not sustainable. And one of the problems is that you kind of get this body dysmorphia. And you saw, for example, a really famous fitness YouTuber, Will Tennyson, talk about this. He finally did a bodybuilding show. He did not feel lean enough. And he was. You get all loopy, almost like a funhouse mirror when you look at yourself in the mirror and you're constantly comparing yourself to others and it's never good enough. And so that's not healthy. And then, it isn't sustainable. You can't exist on 1,300 caloric deficit plus cardio and training forever at 5'9", right? That's just not sustainable. It's not healthy. Women need like healthy fats as well to function. So when all of those macros are cut down, it's not sustainable. And then you have this problem of body dysmorphia. And one of the things that I was cautioned before I started bodybuilding was, hey, if you've ever had any form of eating disorder, this sport is probably not for you. And I knew very well that I was severely anorexic when I was 16, clinically even. But I was like, well, that was then, here's now. But unfortunately, bodybuilding, at least for women in bikini, and I think just across the board, kind of is a glorified eating disorder. And so, I think there's a lot of drawbacks to doing it. And it is a huge accomplishment, I suppose, but there's a lot of negative stuff that I don't think people talk about or consider before they really take this on.
Janet, what questions or comments do you have for Ellie?
So, Ellie, since we're from the hormone background, I got to ask, were you cycling normal? I mean, what happened to the natural hormone balance for you during this process?
So I took the pill continuously. I am an oddball situation because I took the pill continuously for 18 years. But if I weren't on the pill, I can guarantee I would not have a cycle. Guarantee. And that's one of the things that a lot of female bodybuilders run into, is that they lose their period. They're too lean. They're too skinny. And so that's not healthy. That's not sustainable. And I think that people, hear that these things may happen, or the hair loss, or, various side effects, and they just think, oh, I'll get through it, or it's not a big deal. And, as I was saying before we went live, if you're signing up to do a prep, and let's say it takes you 5 months to reach your goal weight for hitting the stage, your prep isn't over after 5 months.
Right.
In order to, respect your body, you should do something called a reverse diet. Your body has adapted. Your body's very smart. And so that's why, you may cut the calories, and then all of a sudden you're plateaued, and your coach says, hey, we need to drop the calories again. And you're thinking, how is this happening? Your body's smart. Your body knows how to survive. And so it's like, really, you should go and slightly, increase the calories for roughly the same amount of time. So it's a serious commitment. It's not just something, and that's something that I see more, is that people are taking things to sort of shortcut, right? We mentioned clenbuterol, Anavar, things that I'm so glad I never tried, but things that were offered to me. And it just didn't make sense to me to put anything in my body that was going to cause harm to me long-term, because this was a very short-lived, might as well try this thing. And even if you do it long term, I think these are things that people just don't consider, especially young people. You see 18-year-olds hopping on gear. Why? You don't even have a base foundation. How long have you even been lifting? People are trying to shortcut this stuff way too much.
I agree 100%. That's one of the reasons we had you on, is because there's so many influencers out there, whether they're male or female, that these young kids are inspired by, and they want to look like them. And it's like, the only way to do it, these people aren't natural, and they're not healthy.
No, they're not.
Yeah. And having two young men that are in their 20s that lift, this is something that we've educated them on for years. Now they've caught on to that culture, and they know it's just a bad scene. But a lot of people don't. They don't have somebody that's educated them about it. So that I'm hoping that this, people can share this and watch it and understand that, that culture is it's just not healthy. And tell us the level you were at. You were at bikini level, but tell us the levels of bodybuilding, because you weren't a true bodybuilder. You were at the bikini level, and as you go up, the drugs get worse, correct?
Oh, I think that you would need to take drugs to go up, right? I mean, I was lean. I guess I had some muscle, but I wasn't like a Hulk or anything. Especially as a woman, it is much harder to build muscle. Actual just strict muscle. It takes a long time, naturally. It takes a very long time. That was one of the things that I saw recently. I don't know if you saw that Sydney Sweeney starred in a movie about a professional boxer. Did you see that whole thing?
I didn't, no.
So the movie kind of flopped, but there was articles that people were writing saying that she put on 35 pounds of muscle in 6 months. And I was like, no, she did not. That is actually impossible. And it, I didn't like seeing that misinformation spread. But I think a lot of women, it's the same reason that women are afraid to touch weights in the gym if they don't know any better, because they're like, I don't want to be bulky like a man. And it's like, honey, like you're going to have to really eat the proper nutrition and like do this for quite some time to start to build muscle. And so there's a lot of just, people are not educated, and that's fine. That's good. Everyone starts somewhere. But yeah, as far as like the different levels, I was in bikini, and, honestly, if I were to like say, okay, I'm going to bodybuild one more time, or actually, I wouldn't bodybuild again. So if I were to just start over and say, what could I have done differently? I should have had a way, better base, right? I didn't have that much muscle. I kind of like did some lifting, and then I wanted to hop straight into a competition. And I think that that's another thing that people do, is they just immediately want to step on stage, and these coaches want to make money. And so sure, they'll take them through a prep, and, of course you look a little different when you're leaner, but yeah, so there's bikini, and then I don't know the exact levels, but it gets pretty crazy for women, and especially for men. I mean, I think it's even harder for a man to stay natural, which is sad.
It totally is. And the thing is that, even the, at your level, or, at the Mr. Olympia level, most of those people that step on stage, they look like that for 5 or 6 hours, and that is it. I mean, there's been people that have lost Mr. Olympia because they were one day out of conditioning. So even those guys at the top level, or women at the top level, they look that way. They are so basically in a caloric deficit. I don't even know how to say it, but they are so in a small window they have.
Yes.
And it is so unhealthy for them. They know they can't stay there long. And that's why really when they step on stage, I mean, they look that way for 24 hours, and that is it. Maybe.
I remember like my first show, it was all new, and it was, it was super exciting to get the spray tan. And like, I had been practicing in my suit for all these months, and it was really genuinely exciting to step on stage. I felt like it was my moment. And obviously the second show got canceled, so I didn't have that one. The third show, I was kind of like, what am I doing here? And, it's a lot of sacrifice to make for a mere matter of minutes, right? You are committing to at least 5, maybe 6 months of no spontaneity, essentially only eating from home, weighing and tracking every single piece of food that you eat, logging everything in MyFitnessPal, saying like being weird at social gatherings, or maybe not even wanting to go out and socialize because your food thing is so weird and so rigid and so regimented. And then you get into this almost mindset of, I need to conserve and ration my energy because I have so little because of what I'm putting myself through. Is that really worth 5 or 6 months of your life over and over and over? And so I was just kind of like, this is too high of a price to pay, plus all of the unhealthy body image that I'm, issues that I'm having walking away from this. Right. And so, happy I did it once, I suppose. But I think that, when you're training with intention and you're actually fueling your body and you're seeing progress, it's really rewarding instead of trying to become something that, again, is not sustainable. And I just, I think it's so glamorized right now. It really is. Right.
I agree. And I got to tell you, Ellie, honestly, and I comment on this on social media, it disgusts me. It really disgusts me. And I just want to get information out there that, it's not healthy. And you just, go ahead, Janet.
Well, what we're not talking about is the longevity of people in this sport, whether it is long-term, health-wise. I mean, Shawn and I know people that have been in that industry and, they didn't make it past 50, and part of it is because of the misuse of all the different things that they're putting in their body and the extreme that they're putting on their body. I mean, in some ways, I look at marathon runners in the same kind of category, but they're not, they aren't putting the
Yeah.
all the other stuff in them, like bodybuilders. And unfortunately or fortunately, that we do have this view of what humans should look like. However, I mean, I think we should maybe go back to maybe some generations before us to see what is natural, like what is healthy for your body. You shouldn't be so big that you step, like we had somebody that we knew in Moses Lake, that he stepped out of the vehicle that he was in and he shattered his ankle because his body was too big, because the weight he should not be carrying for his bones, right? And then think of what you're doing with all these hormones and what you're messing up with the natural rhythm. It's kind of frightening.
100%. Yeah. I mean, that's I think speaks volumes. The fact that I didn't even do anything and I still sort of regret my experience, or regret doing it more than once because I don't think it was worth it. It's kind of a net negative. That's without taking anything that could have had possible side effects that were either forever, like your voice changing. I mean, I just knew I could not risk that. As I was saying before we started, if there was a scenario where I could try these things and see how they would enhance my training with absolutely zero consequence, sure. But that doesn't exist. It is a grab bag, even a low dose of Anavar, because I would have people try and, well, you just take a really small dose. It's just too unpredictable. And, at the time I was a main anchor for a news station. I can't have my voice changing on me. That's crazy. There's obviously other side effects that can come from these things. And the other thing that my coach at the time offered me without me seeking out was something called clenbuterol, which is apparently supposed to help you, lose weight even more. I'm not exactly sure what it does, but I was like, hey, I don't want to take anything like, that's going to be potentially unhealthy. This is already extremely unhealthy what we're doing here. Like, I'm not going to compound the situation.
And clenbuterol is a beta agonist that helps speed up your metabolism, kind of by releasing epinephrine, and it also has anabolic effects. And almost every bodybuilder at the male level uses it.
Really?
And again, one of the things it can cause is a racy heart and a heart attack.
Why would I want that? That's crazy.
Yeah. And going back on, I know you were an anomaly and you were taking the pill when you were bodybuilding, but most of the women that do the bikini or bodybuilding and they get extreme, they lose their periods.
Yes.
And Janet and I, we discuss hormones often, and we talk about when women are young, when you don't have your period, it's a sign you're unhealthy.
Yeah.
And you can be overweight or you can be too skinny.
Yes.
And it's a sign of poor health. And many women, even in high school or college athletes that are D1 college athletes or whatever, and they're training for track and field or basketball, they will lose their periods for a short time. But that's a sign that you're probably overtrained and it's unhealthy.
Totally.
And it doesn't help your fertility long term either.
No way. Yeah. I mean, I was just like, I wasn't thinking about kids at that point, but these things, I mean, again, they I think they would have a cost the longer you do them. And so I got out of the sport, and I still see people that have been in it for over a decade. And it's like, really? You want to do this like cycle of like cut, bulk, cut, bulk, cut, bulk? I mean, doesn't it get old? It's just exhausting.
And I think probably one of the reasons, and you kind of said it already, is that I think once they get into it, they get the more dysmorphia, the more body dysmorphia they get. And you got out early enough where you're like, you know what? Okay, I've been there, done that. I don't want to do it again. But you see it with, I follow some male bodybuilders, and, I mean, they will look shredded, they will look ripped, they will look big, and they still aren't happy. Nick Walker is a great example.
Yeah.
Now his conditioning at Mr. Olympia is always subpar, but the guy is a freak. He is a freak and huge, and yet he still is not happy. So he uses more stuff. And I mean, if he's alive by the time he's 40, I would be very, very surprised. That's another thing too. The Mr. Olympias anymore, back in the day, Lee Haney, 7-time champion, Arnold Schwarzenegger, 6 or 5 or 6-time champion. Dorian Yates was a multiple-time champion. Ronnie Coleman, 6 or 7-time champion. Over the last 10 years, no bodybuilder has done it more than 2 years in a row. And the reason why is because they can't tolerate the drugs anymore. That's disgusting.
Yeah.
That is disgusting. And people need to know that.
Yeah. Well, and we're seeing a lot of bodybuilders die very young. And, you have to assume that a lot of it's connected to what they took. And maybe they stopped taking it a long time ago, right? I mean, these things can have really lasting impacts. And to me, it's really sad, but it's just not worth it. It really isn't. I mean, I feel like we're here doing like a DARE program for school or something of like, hey, kids, drugs aren't worth it. But like, you really have to think about this stuff. Do you really want to have something that you deal with for the rest of your life, or just lose your life young because you've pushed your body too far?
Another thing, Janet talked about, we need to look at, what did men and women, what did healthy men and women look like 2 or 3 generations ago? I think of my grandpa that was a Marine in World War II. And I saw pictures of him when he was in the Marines. And him and his platoon buddies had their shirts off. And he looked lean and fit.
Yeah.
And he didn't look huge. He didn't look big. He looked lean and fit, like men are supposed to look. And when you look at the women back from the 50s, Marilyn Monroe or Raquel Welch, use one of them. Yeah. They didn't have muscles. No. They didn't have abs. And in my opinion, there's probably exceptions to this. But if a woman has abs, if a woman has abdominal muscles, and they are visible like a 6-pack or an 8-pack, she is probably using Anavar and using other anabolics, because women just aren't meant to have muscles like that.
Or she's starving herself so hard.
Yep, that's another one.
I was able to get those visible abs, and I was like, my life is complete. And, you get so desperate. You're eating like pickles and sugar-free Jello all day long, like to try or gum. You're like trying to fill in all these gaps where you're starving. It's not worth it,
And you're exactly right, Ellie. I talked to a bodybuilding coach, and he was a male, and he said, in order for women to get abs, you basically have to starve them. That was his words exactly.
Yeah.
You basically have to starve them.
I remember the second show that I did, the first one I got down, I think to like, was it like 130? And then the second one, we were still a few weeks out from the show, and I was already at 128. And he was like, no, we need to keep going. I was like, what do you mean? I'm already like lower than I was for the first one. And it like still wasn't enough. And that just like devastated me at the time. I mean, it's hard to explain, that level of hunger. And it's crazy too, because it's self-inflicted. But yeah, I mean, it's a price to pay. And that's the thing is, sometimes you see the flip side where people enter competitions and it's like, why are you entering a bodybuilding competition? You are like not, you're not fit at all. What are you doing? You're just going to slap on a spray tan and make a mockery of the sport. I think if you do it, you should commit, at least at an amateur level. I'm not saying take anything. I never think that that's a good idea, but take some time, build some muscle if it's something you really want to do, but I still wouldn't necessarily recommend it. I think there's better ways to spend your time and honestly better goals to have for your fitness journey.
I agree. Well, you've got some fans commenting there. You want to show those comments, Zoe? You've got quite the fans.
Oh, wow.
So Tinky Bling. That's on YouTube, I think. So it says, love your content. Go ahead and start from the top, Zoe.
Bonjour.
And I don't know. Somebody said hi to you in French. And then Kyle Bosley on Facebook. Glad you have the connection with her now. She's married now, Elena H. And Kyle, he tagged some people too. So anyway, you got some fans there, Ellie. So thank you for being on today and sharing your story.
Well,
Janet, what other questions do you have?
Well, I really don't have questions. I kind of have a comment. I think, from the perspective of health, a sport should really, and I think there's just extremes in all sports. So I'm not just picking on bodybuilding, but really, ideally what we are looking for is overall health, right? To be able to perform. And I think we've gotten to a point in so many levels, whether it's professional sports or collegiate sports, where we're at the extreme of whether or not it's worth participating to be healthy, because it's a short period of your life. It's not until your 80s or 90s. I mean, sure, sure, if you are driven to a certain point, I think you become so obsessed with it because that's who you are and that's your passion. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have that passion, but I don't think we should be where we are in so many different levels of being at that extreme for so long, because again, your longevity is shortened. I mean, when you're 90 years old, are you going to say, man, I wish I would have had one more shot of this or lifted one more, right? I mean, we're going to want to enjoy what we have left on this earth to be able to participate in and enjoy life, not, boy, I wish I would have done this or that. I don't believe that happens. I think for the top percent, perhaps, maybe, but for most of us, you know, the sports are becoming almost so extreme. Like, is it really worth it? And we talked about that with our kids on different levels. It's like, sure, you want to participate, let's talk about concussions or different things. Is what we are thinking we should be doing a reality of health, or is it a mindset that we've accepted?
Yeah, well, and it's hard too because, let's say you want to get into bodybuilding, but you want to be healthy. It's really hard for a lot of people not to feel that peer pressure and say, I'm just not going to be competitive if I don't follow suit and do what everyone else is
Right.
doing. So, and I think like, at the time there are like all natural competitions, but they're like looked down upon. No one takes them seriously.
Yeah.
All the attention goes to the ones where people are roided up. And like, if you want to be on the same playing field, I think a lot of people are, persuaded to do things that maybe otherwise they wouldn't do if everyone adopted the same mindset of, hey, let's do this, but let's not all take these harmful, trenbolone and whatever these steroids are. But it's just not the culture right now.
Well, I would, I hope, I hope it changes. Because, social media, it kind of makes it worse, and maybe it'll make it better. Doing podcasts like this, I hope it will. But when you look at the men at the Mr. Olympia level, they are the same bodybuilding coach that was talking about having to starve women to make their abs show. He said this. He says people want to see cartoon characters. They want to see people that look like the Incredible Hulk. And
I gotta say, it's not attractive. I don't know.
Well, I mean, yeah, I agree. And my wife would say the same. And I would say the same thing for women bodybuilders. I mean, totally. It's not attractive to me at all. I'm hoping that when they see all these young people dying, I hope that, it gets turned around and gets changed. I don't know. I'm hopeful, but we'll see. And talking about extreme sports, and all sports have kind of some extreme levels to them. On the opposite spectrum, Janet and I are bike riders, and we mostly do gravel rides and mountain biking, which isn't extreme as like the Tour de France. But look at Tour de France riders. Tour de France riders are just the opposite of bodybuilders.
Yeah.
They want to be as skinny as possible up top.
Right.
They don't want to have any muscle mass up top because it's weight. It's extra weight. Their legs, it's okay if they have powerful legs, and they want a good cardiac and pulmonary engine. But by the way, people that, strive to do that, the men are getting osteoporosis in their 20s.
Wow.
Because they're obsessed with riding their bike and being so small up top. And I compete with some of these guys, and they're 6 foot, 150 pounds.
Wow.
Oh yeah, seriously. And I will never ever, I'm 5'7" and weigh 30 more pounds than they do.
Wow.
And I will never, ever be at that level. And I don't want to be.
Yeah.
You know, because my wife doesn't want me to be, for one. But also, like she says, when I'm 80 eventually, I'm not going to care about the bike races that I might have won. I'm going to
No.
care about how overall healthy my body is.
Totally. And that's the thing too, is like, you should lift weights. Like, lifting weights is so good for your longevity. I mean, I wish that like my parents lifted weights. Like, oh my gosh, it is so good to like touch metal. But, you know, so it's like there's a lot of benefit into lifting. It's just, you know, do you really need to like that's the thing. Bodybuilding to me, like, it doesn't even make sense. You know, you're like doing something that's so strenuous on your body and you're not fueling yourself. It's just, it's so
Well,
counterintuitive.
you know, my brother and I have talked about this before. You know, 100 years ago when bodybuilding started, and I don't know when it really started.
Yeah, right.
You know, but it was to see who could be the healthiest man. What does a perfect body of a male look like?
Wow.
And now they're not. I mean, it's not even close to healthy.
It's wow, that is like a caricature. Oh my gosh, like it is so straight off the course. That is actually comical. It's
Yeah, right.
It is.
I mean,
You
so
see,
they've done just the opposite of what they were gonna do.
yeah, that's sad. That's really sad. And I hope that they can, you know, bring it back. I don't know. It just seems to get more and more extreme. And there has to be, you know, the pendulum has swung very
Yeah.
far. It has to, hopefully not too far the other way, but you know, like let's have a shift.
Yeah. Zoe, let's go ahead and stream that last picture of Ellie. All right. Tell us about this picture.
So this is a hike that I did in Boulder, Colorado this summer, and it was wonderful. And I had so much energy because, you know, I wasn't starving myself, but I felt very fit. And as you know, I broke my femur in March of 23. And so now I can hike again with no issues. And, you know, this is a time where I feel fit and healthy and, you know, just fueled and full of energy. I mean, how great to like just have energy. It's like a huge shift from trying to do things basically starving. It just is not.
So that
Nice.
we're going to wrap this podcast up. I have a question that you just reminded me of something. So when you were training for your bikini show, could you have went for hikes like that?
No, I told you.
Seriously?
No.
Because you would have been too tired?
No way. You get to a point where you need to like conserve your energy. I tried to go swimming with my friend once, and I was like, I'm sorry, I can't swim with you again for the rest of this prep. That made me voraciously hungry, and I can't do anything about it. This was
wow.
This messed up my entire day. And like, you know, sorry, dude. You know, I'm not going to be able to swim with you. That burns too many calories. I can't do it. And I was very rigid because I didn't want to like, you know, binge or do something behind my coach's back. I wanted to give it my all, but with that came a lot of consequences and a lot of pretty miserable days of like going to bed feeling like your stomach's eating itself. Not fun. So no, I would not have been able to do that hike. No way. No.
Well, and that's just not, we're as humans, we're meant to be able to walk all day long.
Yeah.
So if you can't move all day long, then whatever sport you're doing is bad for you.
I wouldn't have let myself. It wouldn't have been worth it. Perhaps I could have if I needed to, but it wouldn't have been worth it because again, you know, you're operating on 1,300 calories a day for months on end. Good luck.
Yeah. Wow.
Plus training, not sustainable, people.
Right. Well, Ellie, thank you so much for being on and sharing your story today. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
You've helped us realize our goal, which is to educate and empower individuals to take charge of their own health. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me on.
And tell us, you've got a big social media following on YouTube. Is that your biggest social media?
Yeah, YouTube. I think I'm at over 216,000 followers for space.
Wow, cool. So what's your YouTube?
Ellie in Space.
Ellie in Space.
I mean,
go follow Ellie on YouTube.
I did interview Elon Musk last year, so you know, I don't know.
Oh, that'll make it go big.
Yeah, that helps.
That's awesome. I so appreciate you being on today. Thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you guys.
And listeners and viewers, thank you for tuning in to Health Solutions with Shawn and Janet Needham. Tune in Thursday to our midweek podcast, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you.